And so we're live now, and I'm just going to introduce the program.
There's a land just off the Atlantic, land of jungles, waterfalls, and sweet scenery, where poor people farm the lands and hunt the waters, and all live in peace and harmony. This is Guyana, beautiful Guyana. This is Guyana, beautiful Guyana.
You're muted, Kojo. You're muted, Kojo.
Sorry about that. Good evening, fellow nation building joinees. My name is Kojo Paris, and welcome to the 5th edition of Nation Building Guyana Beyond 2030. This evening is special for a couple of reasons. One, because we have one of Guyana's foremost patriots, and I say this without apologies, Mr. Stanley Ming. And secondly, I have been given an opportunity to spend a lot more time with him than I had bargained because some of our other panelists have not been able to make it. And the founder of GBJ, Professor Blackman, will accompany me on this journey with Stanley. And I'm very excited about this. Just to remind us, Nation Building Guyana Beyond 2030 is a program where we bring Guyanese who've achieved, Guyanese who have, in one field or the other, including politics, who've done special things, and we try to learn from their lives, and we also take them through a journey of Guyana Beyond 2030 to examine what is needed in order for us to realize the considerable potential we have as a people and as a nation. And I'm going to invite you, Stanley. How are you today?
I'm fine, thanks, Kojo.
Stanley, it's Sunday and it's Father's Day. You don't have to be working. But Stanley, thank you for joining us. And this for me is special because I will declare that I'm a big fan of yours, and I've been for a long time. And so, why don't you spend a couple of minutes sharing with us aspects of your life?
Kojo, I don't want to take too much time with this. As I told you originally, I want to spend more time talking about Guyana's future. But just to give a very quick background, I was born in tenement yard at 61 Public Road, Kitty, at the bathhouse, where as a young kid, myself and my brother Colin, who unfortunately passed as a result of a very stupid accident when some ambulance went through a red light. And we had to plant a kitchen garden to supplement my dad's income. He was the only income earner in the home. And we had to do that in order to put food on the table at the end of the day. He worked as a clerk at Lalscam Street Bazaar for his entire younger years, which is at the corner of South Road and Camp Street where Demerara Bank is. And after I grew up to about, I think it was 11 years, my mom bought a house in Campbellville, where which she bought for $10,000, I remember. We got a mortgage from the Building Society. We went to live there, and my mom immediately sprung into action, and she built what you called in those days a cake shop with a slant bridge leading from the road up to the platform, that's where I got my my training in business, because I worked in that shop every day in the morning before I went to school, in the middays when I came home for lunch, in the afternoons when I got back on the weekends, doing things like packing flour, sugar, salt, rice. In those days, there were no paper bags. We had to do it with brown paper. And my mom taught me to make several things, including sugar cake, fudge, which we sold in the shop. She also showed me how to make covered buttons, sew on buttons, and make buttonholes on women's garments, which I became very good at. And I also taught myself how to do cobbling. I was known to put on good soles and heels on shoes, and the rest is history. When I started working, the first thing I did was to stop my mom from continuing to work. Uh, and I was very proud that I was able to take care of both mom and dad from about let me get this right, 1978 or 1979 until they passed many years after.
Little bit reticent about discussing your private life because, as you said, a lot of people in the community spend a lot of time talking about themselves rather than what they do. But who are some of the people that would have inspired you over the years?
There are quite a number of people, Kojo, that inspired me. Some of them I knew from who they were. Some I knew very close and personal. I was very impressed by the Forbes Burnham when he was president, with his knowledge and what he had in mind for Guyana and what he did. I was also inspired by Dr. Chetty Jagan, both before and after he became president. I had a very good friend in the form of Hugh Chumley, who many know was in the UN, but dealt with countries in distress. Yasu Prasad, Peter Digar, David Carey, Miles Fitzpatrick, Joe Singh, Hugh Chumley, to mention a few at this point in time. I learned a lot from all of those gentlemen. I knew every one of them except in the case of Burnham, but Burnham was well known by my brother, Colin, who used to meet him almost every Saturday at Dennis Irvin's home at the corner of William Street and Public Road, because Dennis Irvin was the chancellor of the university, and Colin was a very close friend of Dennis's son. And they used to hang out there, and Burnham used to be chatting with them almost every Saturday. So I learned a lot from my brother about what Burnham stood for, and his intellect and such like.
And how would you summarize what were the key lessons that the interaction with Forbes Burnham gave to you?
Well, a lot of people don't want to give Forbes Burnham credit for what he had done. I'm not one of those. I mean, I know there's a lot of things that he had done subsequently that did not find favor with some of the population. But the main thing about Forbes Burnham, he was an intellect, he was highly educated, and he surrounded himself with very highly educated and competent people. So he had the benefit of a lot of good advice. What he used the advice for after getting it, that's another debatable topic. But you look at people like Sonny Ramphel, Shahabuddin, and many others who rose to the highest positions around the world. And Burnham had the benefit of good calls. And I mean, for instance, one of the things that a lot of people don't know, the irrigation system throughout Guyana was conceptualized by Forbes Burnham. The MMA irrigation scheme, the one in the Burasiri, and then the one in the Essequibo Coast, Tapakuma. Those are all Burnham's ideas, and they were expedited by professional companies that did superb jobs. There's very little maintenance that was being done over the last decades to maintain those systems, which need to be upgraded right now, actually. And the farming development across Guyana is as a result of what he started. I mean, obviously, subsequent years, other things happened under Chetty Jagan that made a big difference. Also, as I said, in the case of Chetty Jagan, he was one of the people that fought alongside Burnham for the independence of Guyana, and which we got in 1966. Chetty Jagan had the idea of the Del Conte Road, which was from Parika all the way up to across from Bartica, to open up all those lands to agriculture. That was his idea, and that was since the 60s. So those two gentlemen worked very closely with each other. They were buddies from what I know. They traveled on the same plane, they stayed in the same hotel, shared meals, everything, when they worked to get Guyana independent from the colonial era.
Right, and I want to ask our host, Professor Blackman, to please join us in the discussion, because I know that some of the points you've raised will be of particular interest to him, Prof.
Well, I have to say, it is a distinct pleasure to be here with Stanley Ming. I mean, I think he's one of the most distinguished Guyanese entrepreneurs, leaders, parliamentarian, sort of respected voice, and in the national development conversation. And as he's just detailed, I know that he's played a significant role in shaping, Guyana's private sector landscape. And so perhaps maybe the first question I would take advantage of asking him would be to say, you've just described. I mean, you've long emphasized the importance. I was here when you visited the QC in New York, when you had the sort of Ming plan. You've long sort of emphasized the sort of strategic importance of national planning. And so I wanted to know, kind of in your view, what you see as the foundational aspects of a national development strategy that really includes all of the people in all of the regions of Guyana.
Richard, if you don't mind me calling you that, or Terence.
No, Terence yeah.
Guyana does not need to be studied anymore. What I discovered when I became a member of parliament, which I took seriously, was that a lot of studies were done about Guyana over the decades, even before we got independence. And those studies are still valid today. I mean, you would be amazed to know the amount of studies that have been done.
Well, that's what I remembered. I was quite blown away by the presentation that you made at the, what was that, at the GDF place in Queens when you came up here some years ago.
Yeah, the ex-GDF compound.
GDF compound in Queens. Yeah.
But let me show you guys something. This book here, right? You can see the thickness of it, right? It's over 2 inches thick, and it says here, Government of Guyana, Ministry of Works, Hydraulics and Supply, highway approaches to Georgetown and New Amsterdam, development plans. And the date of this was December 1970. Now, what I can tell you, what is now known as the Heroes Highway was planned since then. It's not a new idea, the Heroes Highway. The land was set aside through South Rumbell Garden to connect up what was then Sherry Street to go south. And the original idea was that road was going to be a dead straight line all the way to Diamond. It's in that book there. And what has happened, because many people did not take cognizance of the fact that it was planned since then, and over the years, different governments did different things that encumbered some of the land that should have been on the straight line to get to Diamond. But what I must compliment President Ali for is that he took the initiative to get it done. I tell people, a lot of the politicians, especially in countries like Guyana, say, well, if one set of politicians planned it, we're not going to do it because that was their idea. I don't care who plans what or who saw the vision. The person who expedites it is the person who gets my credit, right? Because he has the wherewithal to say, look, let's forget about this partisan politics. Let's get the road done. And it was done under the presidency of Irfan Ali.
Yeah.
So I give him that credit. I don't care, who idea it was. And that's my position with anything to do with Guyana's development. I don't care whose idea it was. It could be Joe Soap, Mary Jane, Joe Flunks. I don't care, right? The politician who gets it done with the support of the people is the person that I will give the credit to.
Well, that's one of the reasons that in thinking about this, I pointed out to people that you're a personal favorite. And so now in this green book, what are some of what parts of this framework do you think, remain kind of like underutilized, misunderstood, that still needs to be done?
Oh, there's a lot of it, Terence. I mean, for instance, the bypass through Mahaika and Maikoni, which has since been done. I remember very clearly, I think it was when I was in Parliament, 2001, 2002, thereabout. I talked about this study. And I remember at one session of the Parliament, Minister Shavir talked about realigning the road from from just beyond Enmore all the way up to Mahaika and beyond, and straightening out all those turns you have when you go through Mahaika. And they were about to engage some consultant to do a study. And I said to Tony, I said, Tony, no need to do a study. It was already done. I knew about it. I got a copy of it, which was very old and worn, from Bert Carter, who knew about it. He was also,
I had a wonderful visit, a tour of Georgetown with Bert Carter. It was the most beautiful thing. He took me to all them drains, every last thing that he knew. That I was.
Well, Bert Carter was the city engineer when he came back from England, and Bert knew Georgetown and still knows in great detail. But unfortunately, Bert is, in his 80s and is not as mobile as he would like to be. In fact, I just saw Bert yesterday. I go to visit him every so often because every time I speak to Bert, I learn something. So, I always go to see him. And Bert and I, over the years, when he was more active, we did a complete survey of the drainage of Georgetown. There was another gentleman, I don't know if he's still alive. I know he would have retired. His call name was Hoppy. Hoppy could have shown you every culvert and drain that drained Georgetown. Yeah. And Hoppy, Bert, and myself tabulated and photographed all of it. And let me tell you what's the sad story. I saw the president a few days ago in a cleanup campaign around the city, which is admirable that, as a president, he's given an example. But you know what? The entire city of Georgetown can be drained in less than 6 months if the job is undertaken in a proper manner. I can tell you, I have photographs here that I prepared to share with you, that today I went down the road up the Newmarket Street on the northern side of the presidential residence, and they were cleaning a drain that runs from the south to the north, which exists in every block of Georgetown, and they cleared it. And that is why some of the water around the president's residence runs off. But if you were to take a trip, anybody can do it tomorrow, anytime. Drive from Camp Street to Cummins Street, and within every block, look about midway in the block, left and right, and you will see, what used to be drains, but now they're covered with bush, and not a little bit coverage. It is heavily covered with bush. In fact, I'll show you here. This is the drain that was cleared today between Newmarket Street and Lamahar Street that drains that block. And that block is the block from Camp Street to Carmichael Street. Now, if you go to the block that I just mentioned in Quamina Street, those are the two drains to the north and the south. They're not drains, they're forests. The drains are totally covered with debris, trees in some cases, not grass, trees. So that is why the city doesn't drain. We don't need any new drains in the city of Georgetown. What we need is the existing drains that are there to be cleared. And it has to be cleared in a systematic way. You first have to clear the outfalls, which is at Kawan Street. But if you were to go to Kawan Street now, what you will discover is that the outfall of the Coca is higher than the canal behind it, and it is higher than the river at low tide. So the water cannot flow upwards. You have to clear the outfall first, and then you clear the canals that connect to the outfall, and then you clear the drains that connect to the outfall, to the canals. And I will offer here publicly to everybody that is listening, if tomorrow the powers that be are prepared, I am willing to show the mayor and city councilors, the Ministry of Infrastructure, of Public Works, where the problems and bottlenecks are. And I assure you, with a simple crew of people, by the time the next rainy season comes, Guyana and Georgetown can be drained in such a manner that there'll be no more flooding. The flooding of Georgetown is due to complete negligence, nothing else.
And Stanley, thanks a lot for that. Unlike Prof. Blackman, I didn't benefit from one of your tours from a tour of Georgetown, but you took me around a substantial bit of Region 3, and you described it as the region or the area for the future, for Guyana's future. Tell us a little bit about your vision for Guyana. I know you have a wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge, and a wealth of experience. So tell us, what do you see Guyana beyond 2030 as? What does it look like?
Kojo, before I go to that, let me just show you again. That is a drain that straddles Ming's Products and Services, where we are located in Urquhart Street. You can see the drain is clear. There's not even water in it. And the reason for that is that when we acquired these premises and I was investigating, I saw something that caught my attention. And that was the top of the concrete drain. I saw this piece of concrete that was very perfect. And I asked my guys, I said, can you dig and see what it is below there?
And then we lost
and when they dug, they exposed a drain that must have been built, I don't know, maybe 80 or 100 years ago. It's in perfect order. And out of that one drain, we took 4 truckloads of debris that had accumulated there over the years. 4 truckloads. So the good thing about it, having done it ourselves, the company, we do not suffer from flooding in our compound, ever. And if the Guyanese public, the businessmen, were to take the initiative and to use some of their resources and clear the drains throughout Georgetown, they would not suffer either and lose business and lose some of their valuable property that is flooded every time there's a heavy rainfall. We need to take the initiative and do our part.
Yeah. Stanley, in that regard,
Stanley,
go ahead.
Go on, Prof.
Prerogative. You just reminded me of something in the conversation with Bert Carter, and one of the things he said to me during this conversation on the Georgetown ride was the question of VATs and how important the VATs. Is that still something? I mean, is that something that makes any sense in this drainage issue today?
You said the VAT?
Yeah, the VATs. You remember we used to have these VATs?
Yeah, those big wooden VATs.
Big wooden things, and he said to me that this was an essential part of the drainage strategy that I couldn't understand, and I was wondering if there's something there that's collecting water today that is similar to the role that the VATs played in some earlier time. That whether or not something like that could make a difference in the technical problem.
But the thing about it, Terence, based on the little I know about the history of Guyana, VATs were used in the times when we did not have a proper supply of potable water to individual homes. So what a lot of people did is they built these huge tanks, which could have stored water that would last for a couple of months. Fortunately, since then, pure water supply systems have been installed, and we use much smaller tanks these days in areas where they don't have a good supply of potable water, and they use what they call the black tanks, which are plastic that hold about 400 gallons of water, which are adequate in most situations. So I don't think you need the big VATs anymore, because those would be quite costly now to make those, and I don't think you honestly need them anymore.
Great. Stanley, thanks for that. And I certainly was not aware of the role of those VATs, etc. But could we pivot back to the question I asked Stanley about your vision?
Yeah. What I can tell you, Kojo, Region 3, for those of us who are not aware, I know a lot of people might say, well, the reason Region 3 is being promoted as the future of Guyana, as one of the places, is because the president lives in Region, or he's originally from Region 3. But let me just say this to you. I've shown you, and you see it, the area of Region 3 between when you cross the bridge from Schoonard going all the way down to Parika is more than 8 times the size of Georgetown. And it has all the attributes to make it a very, very successful area of the country. It has a lot of agricultural land, where in the case of Parika and its surroundings, they produce 50% of all the agricultural production for Guyana. You have areas that you can build houses to surpass any amount of housing that we built in Guyana on higher ground, industrial parks, commercial areas, recreational areas. And it is a logical decision that I think the president embraces, and I totally agree with him, is that if you put in the infrastructure in Region 3, Region 3 can outgrow Georgetown many times over and be a lot more successful as an area to develop because of its elevation compared to Georgetown and the coast of Guyana. The other thing that we need to be cognizant of with Region 3 is that at the present time, the elevation of the coastline of Guyana is under severe threat. In fact, I have documentation, which I could share if you have the time, that the coastline of Guyana and Georgetown will be underwater by 2030. And like myself, I cannot swim. So I intend to, by the end of 2027, I am moving my entire business, my home and everything to Region 3, because that's where I think the future of Guyana is going to be in the short term. In the long term, we have to go south. The area between Parika and Linden and beyond is even higher. And a study was done by the German government in collaboration with the Guyana government back in 2000 to 2003. And here is the study. And it shows an area of Guyana that is 1,300 square miles, that is larger than all of the townships that we have throughout Guyana. And this is what it says here. It was presented to the government in September 2nd, 2003. It says, the final product of a process started some years ago as part of the cooperation between the governments of Guyana and Germany. The land use plan for the pilot area is the result of a sequence of activities ranging from collecting data, public rural appraisals, and public consultations. The draft plan was discussed in Parika, Linden, and Georgetown with interested stakeholders at the end of 2003, based on which final adjustments were made. The land use plan and the baseline document as presented should now be used to stimulate further developments of the area, be it by the government, both national and regional, international donors, and especially private investors. Most people in Guyana do not know about this. I know because I was one of the few people that paid attention when the research was being done. It involved people who knew, people like Joe Singh and many others. And it has here in a very clearly defined map showing, let me just show this to you very quickly. That's the area there in green, right? It is the size of Trinidad. And the study defined everything that should be done with regards to local government and all the services that should be put in. And it says here, hospital, health centers, business schools, secondary school, primary school, community centers, the whole 9 yards. And that area is more than 20 feet above sea level. So the chance of that flooding for the next 100 years is very highly unlikely. And this is a document that needs to be known and understood by every one of us for the future.
You're chomping at the bits, Prof. Go for it.
No, so actually it's interesting when someone said someone heard that you were going to be a part of they asked me the question that Kojo asked you, but they asked you, how do you envision Essequibo largely as being a part of this, the development in Essequibo as sort of emerging as a kind of integral part of Guyana. So beyond sort of Region 3, but more broadly, the county of Essequibo
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Terence. Obviously, to develop Guyana, because of the small population, we got to do it in stages. I mean, Guyana is 83,000 square miles. It's the size of England, Scotland, and Wales, which requires over a million people. We do not have enough people to populate Guyana and develop it the way it can be developed. So, there again, we have an opportunity to follow what has been done by others over the years and take their example. Now, let me just give you some data here, gentlemen, and the rest of the nation. This is something I compiled before the turn of the century, shortly after I went to Singapore in 1987. And here it is. Singapore got independence from Malaysia in 1965, 9th of August. We got it in 26th of May 1966. The population of Singapore in 1960 was 1.6 million. We were 560,000. They were 2.9 times the population of Guyana. In 2014, which is the last time I followed the data, our population was 735,000, and they were 5.5 million, which is 7.4 times the population of Guyana in 2014. Of the 5,500, 2 million were foreigners, foreign born, because Singapore recognized that for them to develop, even though the small size of the country compared to Guyana, they did not have enough population. So they brought in people from all over the world. And to give you an idea, in 1966, the per capita of Guyana was $348. Singapore was 566, 1.6 times. In 2012, Guyana was 3,584. Singapore was 54,000, 15.1 times. The GDP of Guyana in 1966 total was 228 million. Singapore was 1.1 billion, 4.8 times Guyana. In 2012, we were 2.8 billion, and they were 298 billion, 107 times Guyana. And the size of Singapore is 277 square miles. Guyana is 83,300 times the size of Singapore. Singapore has no natural resources, not even water. They have to buy every liter of water from Malaysia. And due to the vision of one man, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, it came from being a backward third world country to the most successful country in the world today. And I will show you something that I always talk about because I take many kudos from this gentleman. That's the book he wrote. From Third World to First, the story of Singapore. And on the back cover, this is what it says. Lee Kuan Yew is one of the brightest, ablest men I've ever met. This book is a must-read for people interested in a true Asian success story. From this book, we also learn a lot about the thinking of one of this century's truly visionary statesmen. That was George Bush Sr. Margaret Thatcher said, "In office, I read and analyzed every speech of Lee Kuan Yew. He had a way of penetrating the fog of propaganda and expressing with unique clarity the issues of our times and the way to tackle them. He was never wrong." And it goes on to say that this book is the manual to every politician to study how to develop their country.
And Stanley, you hit upon an important point here because the data, the plans, the studies have been broadly done for a superstructure for Guyana's development. What's missing? What is it that will bridge us from where we are to where we can be 2030 and beyond?
All right, Kojo, again, I am a disciple of Lee Kuan Yew and a couple of others. Within more recent times, Mr. Paul Kagame of Rwanda. I have followed his leadership. And let me tell you, Lee Kuan Yew had a very simple system that embraced whatever it was he set out to do. He says, do whatever you do using MPH to decide what you do and how you do it. The M being meritocracy. The only persons you employ, engage in government, in business, whatever you do, are people that are merited. not because it's your brother, your sister, your cousin, your in-laws, your friend. Merit is the only yardstick to be used to decide who works with and for you. The P is for pragmatism. Whether the cat is black or white, it does not matter. Once it can catch mice, engage that cat. It will get the job done. And H, he says, that surpasses and surmounts everything is honesty. If the individuals are not honest, sorry, they cannot be involved. So you decide what we use in countries like Guyana, and then you will decide if we're on the right track. I say no more.
Your merit, pragmatism, and honesty is a good thing. But no, you live in Guyana, so you know more than I do the extent to which these principles adhere. And I had a thought there. Like, what would you say in terms of what should our national approach be to youth engagement, skills development?
Well,
Private sector. What advice would you give to them? This next generation of entrepreneurs like yourself.
Terence, what I would say to you here, I know a lot of people are not going to like me for this, but I really don't care. I don't care to be politically correct. Once I'm correct is all that matters. Yeah. People like me, I'm 74 this year. Next year I'm going to be 75. People like me need to get out of the way of the younger generation. Literally get out of the way. For a simple reason. We have a lot of pent-up anger and angst in the older generation about race and all sorts of things that have kept us back. The younger generation that I speak with every day don't want to hear about what Burnham did back in 19 whenever, or what Cheddy Jagan did. All they want to know is what is going to be done about our future and our children's future and the next generation. And the unfortunate thing is the old guard like myself, we keep regurgitating history. We keep looking back in the rearview mirror. And a friend of mine tells me, do you know why a motor car has a large windscreen and a small rearview mirror? So you can see what's ahead and what you're going into as against what is behind you. So we need to adopt that principle, right? Stop looking back and think about the future. But for partisan reasons, we continue to divide the country along racial lines. And that goes across the board, not any one particular party, because it serves their purpose of keeping the country divided. And I will tell you one thing, Guyana and countries like Guyana will never progress until such time that every Guyanese, irrespective of race, religion, class, or creed, or which political party they support, which is their entitlement, wakes up in the morning and says, I have a stake in this pie called Guyana. Until such time that we stop seeing ourselves as Black people and Koli people and Bok people and Amerindians and Chinese and become Guyanese, we ain't gonna go anywhere. I never heard a Jamaican say, I'm a Black Jamaican, I'm an Afro Jamaican, or I'm an Indian Jamaican, or I'm a Black Bajan, or a Koli Bajan. I hear they call themselves Bajan or Jamaicans. Until such time we wake up and smell the roses and start to build a nation of Guyanese, we ain't gonna go anywhere, my brother. Sorry.
What are some practical steps to get us there? That was one of the questions I wrote down for you. What are some practical steps to get us there?
And before you, sorry, and great question. And before you answer that, Stanley, I want us to focus on the Constitution and what are the practical steps in getting the right political setup.
Kojo, again, we don't need to invent the wheel. Right? An annotated handbook of the 17th of July 1999 report of the Constitutional Reform Commission of Guyana. Right? When you see this book and you realize the amount of work that was done, and in the annotation, it tells you what the Constitution was at the time and what it should look like for the future. But guess where it is? On a shelf or in a rubbish bin somewhere. Right? That's where it is. And this is what it would have looked like if we did what was supposed to be done. Very simple. So again, studies about Guyana have been done ad nauseum. So much so that years ago, when they were talking about what needs to be done about Guyana and its development, the UN commissioned a study of the studies. So now we have in Guyana a study of the studies. Okay? And what it has in it here was coordinated by Dr. Philip Alsop, who was a legend in Guyana. It has here roads and bridges of Guyana, waterways, ports, harbors, domestic airports, internal airports, railways, transport reviews, and an epilogue and assessment of roads, challenges, needs, challenges, and opportunities. This is not a study. This is a study of the studies. So Guyana now has hundreds of studies and now a study of the studies, right? But we're doing more studies.
Yeah.
So I gotta ask you then, so
Yeah.
and it's repeating Prof's question. What are the practical things that need to happen from tomorrow? You give us 3 things that need to be done for these studies of the studies and the studies to be implemented. Because Guyanese are becoming a little bit frustrated. There's lots of oil. We look around and we see other countries like Singapore, etc., and the Gulf developing, but we are not making anything comparable by progress. What practically needs to be done?
Well, the first thing you need, Kojo, in any organization, whether it's government or business, is visionary leadership. Leadership that has a vision, not for today or tomorrow. In the case of India, what they did many years ago, and again, what I do is I don't invent the wheel. The wheel was invented centuries ago. I use the wheel, right? This is a book that was done before the turn of the century, India 2020. A vision of India that was prepared, and I tell you here, by how India can be amongst the first economic powers of 2020. And this was done by young people all across India, along with professionals in all the various fields of endeavor in India, and presented to the country. And this book has sold 75,000 copies many decades ago. What it has in here is what should be done to make India successful, which they're on the way. And what they set out to do there was, let's say for argument, we're building a road from Linden to Letem to Brazil, which is, traversing region 7, 8, and 9. So what do we do? Do we just do that? Or do we find out from the people in region 10 and region 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, as a part of the vision for the country, how do we connect up the other 7 regions? So that if today Stanley Ming was the president and he liked region 3, and somebody else liked region 4, fine, no problem. So I will put in place the things I think that are needed to make region 3 successful. And then next 5 years, I lose the election and somebody else goes in. They don't change what's going to be done. They do what is necessary to link region 4 to the rest of the country. And then if it happens to region 2, you do that as well. So at the end of the day, 20 years down the road, they all connect up. But what we do right now, a government gets into office, what the PNC said they're going to do, throw it out of the way. When APNU get in, what the PP did, throw it out of the way. Start over, right? And invariably, we waste time and money. And one of the things I saw, as again I said, I do not invent the wheel. I use the wheel all the time. I look through I read excessively. I'm a compulsive reader. I read everything, including comic books, because I learned something from that as well. But I saw in an article that was published a couple of years ago under the heading, What is Real Development? Ian McDonald on Sunday. He says here, it is not really surprising therefore, that every country in the region, he's talking about the Caribbean, is littered with the burnt out corpses of plans not implemented and reports unread except by scholars long after events have turned out very differently. You got it there, my brother. Not me. I just said someone who I have admired over the years, another one of them, Ian MacDonald, a lot more learned than I am. I tell people, some of the people that I've met over the years, what they have forgotten I haven't learned yet. And I tell people that I do not need to know very much, and I don't claim to know very much. But I boast that I know people that know everything about what I need to know. And if I want to find out about the engineering, I pick up my phone, I said, Bert, such is the case. What's the solution? I need to know about Guyana and the interior development. Joe Singh, Joe, what's going on? Tell me what's happening at the border. He knows, right? And that applies to every aspect of what I need to know. I call people every day to learn something new, every day, bar none. Because, as I said, I know people in the space program that worked on sending people to the moon. The person who developed the guidance system for the cruise missile was a Guyanese, Hari Prasad, the Patriot missile. So I know people, and I am the first one to say I don't know. And even if I know, I claim that I don't know because I learned something more. Right?
Prof?
So very easy to work.
You know, I've been looking forward to this conversation, and I didn't realize I was going to be a part of it because I thought we had some other people. So, you know, I've always had lots of pent up sort of questions for someone like you. You know, there are two things that, and I'm also mindful of the time. So I want you to keep this one at the back of your, you know, I want you to keep, well, maybe I should ask this one so that the time don't run away off. So I've been thinking, what would I want to ask Stanley Ming? And I said, okay, I want you to write a letter to the kids that they will read in 2030. What are the three things, just three, that you would want to see fulfilled for Guyana between now and 2030?
Number one, educate yourselves.
Yeah.
A lot of the young people today, well, I must tell you, I admire the women. This last set that graduated, 70% were women. Yeah. And they have found the secret, which they are now engaged in. My company, for instance, the majority of my managers, more than 70%, are women. You know why? They are extremely competent. They're not there because they are good looking. I mean, some of them are definitely good looking, but that's not the reason, right? It's for their competence, right? And I don't care what color they are, what religion or race, right? My company, the people that work for me are from all across Guyana. Amerindians. In fact, the person in charge of our workshop maintenance for Yamaha outboards, who is highly trained, is from a little village near to Anai that came here many years ago out of a polytechnic school. Well, not the school at Kurukuru. And we sent him to be trained in Antigua, in the United States, online by Yamaha Motor Company. And he is now in charge of that. So when you tell me that Amerindian people are not wanting to work and stuff like that, that's not true. They have to be given opportunity like every other Guyanese. I have people in my company that walked the streets 20 years ago in Tiger Bay and are now qualified and working. I had students that were forgotten, well, young people forgotten in Tiger Bay when I moved in here. People say, boy, you can get robbed every day of the week and twice on Sundays. But let me tell you something. In Tiger Bay today, there's no crime. There is no crime in Tiger Bay. But you know what? People from other parts of the country come out at nights, roam in Main Street, rob people, run into Tiger Bay, and they get the name. But Tiger Bay does not have crime. I can put my neck on a block I worked with those people. When we did the outreach in Tiger Bay in the 90s when I came here, I ensured the lives of 300 and something children that their parents had problems with them not going to school because they were sick and they couldn't attend school, they couldn't get medical attention. And we provided insurance not to go to public hospitals for a consultation, but the private hospitals around the city. They got their consultations, they got their medications, all at our expense. You know what was the end result? In 1 year, three of the young ladies were in the top 100 students in the country. And they went to bishops and queens. And I knew from day one that they would have been at a psychological advantage because they come from Tiger Bay, and all the children who go to bishops and queens, their parents are wealthy, they get dropped to school in cars and stuff like that. But guess what I did? When I came to work in the morning, my driver took those young ladies to school. They were chauffeur driven. So they arrived just on the same level as the rest. And they, when they did their CXCs, they excelled and they came to work for me. And one became the assistant to my partner's assistant. One worked in the accounts, and the other one worked in sales, and they're now all abroad, unfortunately. They've all gone and furthered their education. And that's the story of Tiger Bay. And I had people like New Thriving, Nations School of the Nations, the Erlings at Germans. We have worked together over the years, providing support, but we don't advertise it because we don't do it for advertisement. We do it to uplift the community. That's what we do.
A few days ago, I met the young Erling here in New York. Actually, it's good that, it's quite interesting.
We're running short of time, and there's a lot more to be covered. But Prof, can you? There was an interesting question posed by Modeste. I wonder if we can pose it to Stanley.
Wait, I missed it. So it was around.
Yeah, there we go. Stanley,
what do you see as the most essential element of nation building that should be a key item to address to ensure we maintain cohesiveness? Again, it comes down to leadership and vision. Unfortunately, there's a book that I recommend to every young person they should read, and I have it here. It says "Why Nations Fail," right? And there's one verse, one paragraph that captures it, and we can see it happening in the world around us every day. Right now, it is happening in Israel with the Palestinians. That is not about getting Hamas. Most of the people that they claim are terrorists, the Hamas, were killed in the very early days. What they're doing now is decimating. It is genocide of women and children in their homes, in the hospitals, in their schools. And you know why that is so? It's the oil and gas under the West Bank and the Gaza Strip that BP and certain individuals have the rights to. Another individual who is a world leader wants the land to create some sort of oasis and seaside resort, right? At the expense of decimating a population. And it says here in the book, I tell you, getting it wrong, it says most economists and policymakers have focused on getting it right, while what is really needed is an explanation for why poor nations get it wrong. Getting it wrong is mostly not about ignorance or culture. As we will show, poor countries are poor because those who have power make choices that create poverty. They get it wrong not by mistake or ignorance, but on purpose. In other words, the old adage, if you keep the masses as asses, you will control their minds. So keep them poor, where they got to get up every morning, go fetch firewood, get water to crunch a meal, and you control their minds. The day you allow your population to become educated, you will have problems because they will challenge you. And our young people needs to start from now. Read, educate, get together as groups rather than as individuals, and work together as a team. The success I've had in business has nothing to do with Stanley Ming other than giving leadership. I have 60 people that work together in close collaboration. We don't hold very many meetings. You know, I took a page out of Elon Musk's book. Elon Musk says, any problem you have, if the team cannot be fed with 2 pizzas, it's too big, right? So if you got 20 people on a committee, you're wasting time, because every one of the 20 got to prove to the other 19 that he's smarter than them, right? If you got a small team of 5 people and they get together, each one of them with a specific skill, I guarantee you, as I've proven on many occasions, in my case, in 15 minutes, we have the solution.
You know, on that, what you offered, what more advice would you offer to like the next generation of entrepreneurs to contribute to nation building as we're sitting in this oil thing? Because some of our people are getting really greedy, and they're not thinking about themselves as Guyanese entrepreneurs. They're just thinking of people who make money.
Yeah,
What
well, again,
would you say to-
Terence, the deck is stacked against them. I can tell you, as I sit here tonight, I have a young son, well, a son that's 28 years old, who would love to come back to Guyana with all his friends that they went to school together at Mays and then Nations. 2 of them got married about a week ago. I sat with them here in my office, and I said to them, what are you guys going to do? I talked to them as a group, and all of them said, Guyana is not the place for us. We don't have opportunities here. Because to get anything done in Guyana, you got to know somebody who knows somebody, a big one up there, right? And that is what will continue to keep us back. Right now, in the case of Trinidad, that has succeeded to some extent in getting local content. Local content, you can't tell Exxon to come and talk to Stanley Ming because he's a Guyanese. What do I offer Exxon or one of their tier ones contractors? I got to have something. But you know what they did in Trinidad? They did not allow any foreign company to buy land. They created areas for the oil and gas development, for whatever infrastructure, and it was sold to Trinidadians. And the rules were, every industry that you want to come and participate in Trinidad, you have to have a majority Trinidadian. He brings in the real estate, you bring in the technology and the skill. And guess what? They don't bring money. They bring the knowledge that they have, and they raise the capital on the financial markets. Most of those companies, including Exxon, until they found oil in Guyana, were bankrupt. They don't bring money, they bring skill. But we need people that understand business and how to structure deals, right? Not overnight, as you have in some countries, not just Guyana. People become ministers of government, and overnight they're from whatever, a preacher, and he becomes an engineer, and he knows everything about roads, bridges, etc. What are we doing, right?
I submit we have a few of those in Guyana.
Sorry?
I said, I submit we have a few of those in Guyana, Stanley, who know everything about everything.
Yeah, overnight. It doesn't take very long, right? The day after they're voted into office, they know everything. And the engineers who are supposed to be making decisions about how to design and build the road, bridges, and everything, they are pushed aside because they already know what's going on. That's why we are where we are. I mean, to give you an example, I drove down the road yesterday on the back road from John B. Boyd roundabout, going towards the west, the Bangladesh. All of the steel barriers on the side of the road are pointing in the wrong direction. If any vehicles hits those, it will become a guillotine. It will pass through the car and decimate whoever is inside it. They overlap in the wrong direction. The same is on the road going from Dennis Street going towards Conversation Street. Those things overlap in the wrong direction because I don't know who tell them to put it like that, but it's wrong. And they can kill people innocently. The other thing that I want to say to you, we are backward because we have backward regulations. Can you imagine that when you buy a new car in Guyana, right, you have to take it to the license office for them to check the number, the serial number. You got to take it to Brigdan police station to see that it is fit. Now you tell me, are you going to buy a new vehicle that is unfit? And are you not going to check to see that the documentation is right? If I want to buy a car in the United States or Canada, I go in there at 9 o'clock in the morning. At 10 o'clock, I drive away with it, with the number plates and everything. 1 hour, right? But we are backward. We are not adapting to the modern way of doing business and getting things done, which puts off young people. All of the young people in Guyana know they can go into a car dealership in the Canada or the United States and buy a motor car and drive away in an hour, right? You go to Canada and you want, or the United States, you want to set up a business, you don't go to see the president or the prime minister. You don't want to go see Donald Trump. You go with your business plan to the bank. You go to the land requirements. You want a real estate agent. You rent or buy a property, and you get your financing from the bank and you start. But here you have to see the president, you have to see the minister. But I don't go to anybody to do anything for me because I don't want any favors. Very simple, right?
Stanley, but we want favors from you, and you've done us a huge favor today. And we're going to have to ask you another favor, which is to return, Stanley, because we're at the end of an hour, and there's just so much more that I would like to have you share with the audience. Prof, I don't know if you want to quickly make
I'm a little sad because the conversation has come to an end, and I knew this was going to be a really good conversation, and so yeah, I'm.
Why don't we let's bring him back, Prof?
We have to do this again because I know there's so much that I had written down that I wanted to ask you. So maybe the only thing I wanted to know is like these so these plans and stuff. I mean, they have to be put online someplace so that people could have access to them. What's the story?
Terrence, let me tell you what I am very happy to do, right?
Yeah.
These plans and documentation, nobody gave me. I flew to Texas where I found the company who had done the studies. I flew to England. I paid for and got copies. I came back to Guyana. I made copies and gave it to the relevant people, all the relevant people over the years, right? And I am happy if you guys set up whatever it is you need to set up. I will download all the data that I have, most of which has been scanned, and you guys do whatever you want. It serves me no purpose. I get calls every day from the previous government, this government, the ones before that, for copies of documents. I give it freely. It has no value to me. Unless knowledge is shared, it has no value to anybody.
Well, Stanley, here's the undertaking I'm going to give, is that within the next month, and certainly before the elections, we got a wonderful young lady who's very versed in this stuff called Chelsea, and we will make sure that this is digitized and put on a couple of sites, including, and I say this presumptuously with Prof there, including JBJ and my own foundations, the Roraima Trust, so that this becomes publicly available. Because, it has to become, I've benefited from your counsel many, many times and continue to do. And this needs to be made a national asset so that we don't have to, as you say, keep studying things which have been studied before. Prof, with Stanley still in the house, what would you say were the main takeaways?
No, I think the key thing is that we have these plans. We've had these plans. We've studied these problems. We have clear written down plans about how we ought to move forward. And I think the challenge is implementation. And the question for us is to think through, what are the preconditions for implementation? And I think also that the if you will, the elephant in the room is to think about how we do this in an inclusive manner so that we make the conditions right for all of our people. And I think that this is the challenge that we're facing. I mean, it's, I have to confess, I was very excited to chat with Stanley and to listen to the conversation. And I'm a little sad that the conversation is ending, but also a little excited because I see that, we have a blueprint for what we need to do. It's no mystery what we need to do. The question is doing it. And that's where I think we have to focus our.
Yeah, I'll tell you what really worries me is our seeming inability to engage young people in a sense of a national project. And when I grew up, and also when I can say this, when you grew up, also there was a sense that Guyana was on, embarking on this amazing project, and yes, and there are lots of things which didn't go right, but there was generally, certainly among certain sections of the population, the sense of a national project, something that we were all working towards, and I don't get that sense now. And Stanley corroborated that by relating his discussion with the young folks recently. And Stanley doesn't want to address it. I know that he doesn't like to address issues of politics very directly, but clearly there's something wrong with our political system.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Kojo, I want to just say something in closing. First of all, I have absolutely no desire to be in politics ever again, right? Some people might think, oh, this guy is lobbying, he wants to be president, prime minister, or whatever. I told my very close friends, if ever you hear Stanley Ming say getting back into politics, leave your house with urgency, bring some chains and rope, tie him up, and take him straight to the Bobby Smart house. He's lost it, right? So if anybody thinks I'm doing this because I want to be anything, I don't want to or need to, right? I have all the power I need to in life at this point in time to do what I want, when I want, how I want, with who I want, and where I want. And that's power for me, right? I have two things in life that I want to do by the age of 75. I'm working assiduously in it, and one is to drive a motor car at over 200 miles an hour, and the other one is to go in a fighter jet and fly vertically up through the sound barrier. And I'm working on it. Other than that, I said in a statement I made at the beginning of this year, it says, as a Guyanese, whether we reside abroad or somewhere on the 83,000 square miles of what is mostly pristine forest, savanna, highlands, waterways, etc., how can we each contribute in some small way to ensure that we live in peace, harmony, and unity as we strive to achieve success individually for our families and for our communities? As we face yet another very unpredictable set of circumstances worldwide and another election cycle in our homeland, let's pause, reflect, and truly make the requisite decisions and adjustments that will make our national motto of one people, one nation, one destiny, not just a saying, but a heartfelt ambition. Starting from our leaders of our dear land of Guyana, all the way down to our children, whose hearts and minds need to be nurtured with love and compassion for their fellow humans. And this is what I want to hear about. One Guyana, one people, one nation, one destiny. That's what I want.
Stanley Ming, this has been a true pleasure, and we will have to bring you back for some of the untold and unshared stories which both Prof and I know exist. And yours has been a remarkable life of competence, achievement. But I think what comes through really clearly today is the passion you have and the patriotism you have for Guyana. Prof?
Yeah, Kojo. I just wanted to say, Stanley, really thank you for really an extraordinary conversation. I think this has been a deeply personal and a profoundly national conversation. And you've shared not just a history for Guyana, but a vision for Guyana. And I think it's a vision that transcends race and politics, and, as you've just noted, individual interests. And you've articulated the commitment to knowledge sharing,
Terrence,
meritocracy. These are things that are important. These are things that I like. And I said to Kojo, I want to say thank you.
Terrence here.
Properly. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, let me give you guys a laugh. People ask me how I classify myself.
Yeah.
I had a test done about my ancestry several years ago in the United States. It came back saying I was 53% Asian, 13% African, 7% Indian, and the rest mixed up European, Portuguese, and a whole set of other stuff. So people ask me, so what do you call yourself? I said, boy, I'm a mixed chow mein.
Yeah.
Stanley,
I
Stanley,
this is something that we have to think more of, and I hope we can do this again in the future. I really do hope. I think it will benefit Guyanese to have a sense of your perspective. You know, it really will, and I hope you'll consent to do it again in the
Well,
not.
anytime I mentor a lot of young people, I do it very quietly and in groups, all the time. Um, as I said, I have a lot of these studies already scanned, and once you guys set it up, I will send it to wherever. I can send it to you from tonight. I can send you the German study. I can send you all the studies that I've gone through in detail. It's there, and I have no compunction about giving it to anybody, because it has no value if I just keep it on the wraps. Because what am I going to do with it? The powers that be got to use it to make the requisite decisions to move the country forward, and that's all I'm interested in. Nothing else.
Stanley, thanks, and Prof, thanks for giving us the opportunity to bring Stanley here, and we'll certainly get him back again. But viewers and nation builders, thanks for joining us. This has been a seminal discussion and one which we must take forward. And thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank
Cheers.
you, Stanley. Thank you, Kojo. Wonderful evening to you guys, and happy Father's Day to you all.
Yes, gosh, I forgot that.
Peace and love.
Good night.
Good night. Good night. That was good. That was really good.
Yeah, are we offline?
No, I should do that. Yeah, let me